Hello and welcome to the Rare Record Room. I've been collecting vinyl for around 40 years now. I was buying records in the late 1970s and during the 80s through to the 90s and beyond, when records were no longer in vogue and proved rather difficult to find. My collection is mostly guitar-based music from the 50s through to the 90s, covering rock and roll, through rhythm and blues, beat, psychedelia, rock, soul, funk, punk and new wave, pop and Britpop. It comprises around 2,500 records, mostly LPs, although there's a few hundred 7-inch singles, EPs and 12-inch singles. Most original pressings or unusual versions, and my aim in these videos is to show some of the more interesting that I have, or at least the ones I find interesting. If you do too, please feel free to hit the like button and check out my other videos. In today's episode, I'll be looking at Manfred Mann's recordings in 1966 to 7. This was a transitional period for the band, seeing a change in both personnel and a change of their record label. Their first single of 1966 was Pretty Flamingo in April. This was backed by You're Standing By and was a huge hit, reaching number 1 in the UK singles chart in May that year. It was recorded at Abbey Road Studios and features Jack Bruce on bass. This was Manfred Mann's first 7-inch without the founding member Mike Vickers. Bassist Tom McGuinness had moved over to guitars for Pretty Flamingo, making way for Jack Bruce, who had recently left the Graham Bond organisation. Pretty Flamingo was followed by the single You Gave Me Somebody to Love, which was their final 7-inch release on the HMV label. This was an unfinished track with a Paul Jones vocal and was completed by session musicians and not promoted by the band, who had switched labels to Fontana Records. As such, it briefly appeared in only the lower reaches of the UK Top 40. Singer Paul Jones went solo and he was replaced by Mike Darbo. At the same time, Jack Bruce left to form the supergroup Cream, and he was replaced on bass by the Beatles' friend and collaborator Klaus Voorman, who had designed the sleeve for Revolver, released that August. This new lineup of Manfred Mann, Mike Hugg, Tom McGuinness, Mike Darbo and Klaus Voorman remained unchanged until the band's eventual split in 1969. With instability in the group now behind them, they enjoyed a second wave of success on the Fontana label, beginning with their top 10 cover of a Bob Dylan song, Just Like a Woman. Backed by I Wanna Be Rich, this reached the UK top 10 in September 1966. The accompanying LP was released in October 66, titled As Is. This was far removed from their frantic rhythm and blues sound during the HMV period, and shifted focus to a polished studio production and a commercial and baroque pop sound. Instruments included on this LP are the mellotron, flutes and textured guitars, which had permeated the chart sound of 1966 and finally consigned beat music to yesteryear. As Is reached number 22 in the UK album chart, with mono copies valued at £20 now and stereo versions in mint condition valued at £30. A scarce variant cover exists, supposedly withdrawn, showing band members on the footplate of a steam train. This copy, known as the locomotive sleeve, is worth £60. Manfred Mann's final single of 1966 was the number 2 hit semi-detached Suburban Mr James, which was co-written by John Carter of the Ivy League. 2 singles only were released in 1967, which was a fairly quiet year for the group. The first of these was Ha Ha Said the Clown, a psychedelic single featuring Manfred Mann on mellotron and backed by the song Feeling So Good. This reached number 4 in the UK chart, and shortly afterwards it was covered by Keith Relf of the Yardbirds. The second and final single in 1967 came in May, which was a cover of Tommy Roe's Sweet Pea, backed by the song One Way. This performed poorly, only scraping into the UK top 40. No original LPs were released in 1967, and that year's only LP appearance was a compilation of earlier material from their previous record label, HMV. This was a curious collection of mainly instrumental covers of chart hits including The Who's My Generation, Still I'm Sad by the Yardbirds, I Got You Babe by Sonny and Cher, and I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. Manfred Mann distanced themselves from this, and it did not sell well or enter the UK chart. The band's fortunes would improve, however, in their final years, which I will cover in the next video. So for now, this just about brings to an end my brief history of Manfred Mann's recordings for HMV and then Fontana during 1966 to 7. That's your lot for this episode from the Rare Record Room. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did like the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more and to receive notifications for any new uploads. Thanks for watching. See you next time.